This is VOA News. Reporting by remote, I'm David Byrd. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Wednesday the military alliance and Russia have agreed to try to schedule more meetings despite tensions over Moscow's military buildup near Ukraine. Speaking after chairing a meeting of the NATO-Russia Council, Stoltenberg said both parties expressed the need for dialogue and to explore a schedule of future meetings. But he said any talks about Ukraine would not be easy.
All this means that our dialogue is difficult, but even more necessary. NATO allies stress that they will make every effort to find a political way forward.
Stoltenberg told reporters that there were significant differences between NATO allies and Russia on this issue. The talks come during a week of high-stakes diplomacy and a U.S.-led effort to prevent preparations for what Washington believes could be a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Moscow has more than 100,000 troops, tanks, and heavy equipment along its border with Ukraine, but denies it is planning an attack. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has apologized to lawmakers for attending a lockdown party. AP's Charles de Ledesma has more.
Johnson's acknowledged for the first time he went to the May 2020 garden party at his Downing Street office, though he said he'd considered it a work event to thank staff for their efforts during the pandemic. Johnson's facing a tide of anger from the public and politicians over claims he and his staff flouted pandemic restrictions by socialising when it was banned. Some members of his Conservative Party say he should resign if he can't quell the furore. Charles de Ledesma, London.
For more on these stories and the rest of the day's news, visit our website. This is VOA News. The World Health Organization's Director General said Wednesday more than 15 million new cases of COVID-19 were reported globally last week. By far the most new cases reported in a single week since the pandemic began. Speaking at a COVID-19 briefing in Geneva, WHO head Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said while the Omicron variant of the virus causes less severe disease than previous variants, it remains a dangerous virus, particularly for those who are unvaccinated.
While vaccines remain very effective at preventing severe disease and death, they do not fully prevent transmission.
Ghebreyesus said more transmission means more hospitalization, more death, and more risks of another variant emerging that's even more transmissible and more deadly than Omicron. The COVID-19 case surge in the United States is renewing a nationwide debate over masks. AP's Sagar Magani has more.
Any mask is better than no mask.
CDC Chief Rochelle Walensky says the best type is the one you will actually wear.
The one you can keep on all day long, that you can tolerate in public indoor settings and tolerate where you need to wear it.
The White House says it's strongly considering options for making high-quality masks available to all Americans. But besides which one to wear, the debate again centers on whether to require them, especially in schools. From Wyoming's capital city to the University of Missouri, mask mandates are being lifted or voted out. The University of Arizona, though, now requires medical-grade masks be worn indoors where there's no social distancing. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Inflation jumped at its fastest pace in nearly 40 years last month, a 7% spike from a year earlier. That is increasing household expenses, eating into wage gains, and heaping pressure on President Joe Biden and the Federal Reserve to address what has become the biggest threat to the U.S. economy. Prices have risen sharply for cars, gas, food, and furniture as part of a rapid recovery from the pandemic recession that was fueled by vast infusions of government aid and emergency intervention by the Fed, which slashed interest rates. As Americans have ramped up spending, supply chains have been squeezed by shortages of workers and raw materials. On Wall Street, stocks closed higher Wednesday, with the Dow Jones Industrials adding 0.11%, the S&P 500 climbing 0.28%, and the Nasdaq gaining 0.23%. You can find more on our website, voanews.com. Reporting by remote.